All right. Are we ready? Yes, we're ready, okay. In accordance with the requirements of open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and taped for broadcast over Lunenburg Public Access. And now we'll do attendance. Joan Pease,
Troy Daniels.
John Reynolds.
Barb, our business manager, is here. Jane, our note taker, is here. Bob Ebersole, our selectman representative, is here, liaison, and
Peter Venuto.
representing Crossroads Plaza. Okay, so I guess we'll get right into our first appointment.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I am representing Crossroads in this matter to discuss this fine issue that you have brought up or have put against the property or against the owners, and try to wrap my head around where and how it got to such a high numbers where we spent legitimately, and we have had forward the bills of what we paid to have this thing corrected of in excess of $40,000. I just recently read this letter from Carl Luck.
Okay, if you're going to reference it, I'm going to read it into the minutes,
Sure,
okay?
please.
It's not very long. It says, I have not seen any requests, so don't know what they are asking for. The cost to bring them into compliance with state law should not really enter into the discussion or decision. The fine is a separate matter that was driven by their lack of responsiveness and is consistent with policy and what others pay, like Kebabalicious. If the discussion goes to cost, it is not clear what the change orders were for, so just using the 50K number is questionable. Also, note, known is how much they saved by not installing the system on the plan to begin with. But again, this is not our issue. Further, it could be interesting to put this into perspective by looking at the cost-fine ratio to review for Crossroads versus Kebabalicious, if people want to feel bad for the owner. The full commission has discussed this fine many times and agreed that it is to be paid. Finally, unless the fee is paid, they should be informed that they will not be given a permit to operate after June 30th. The impact to their renters is their issue, not ours or our users' issue. This is now 16 months overdue. They should be thankful we are not talking about interest. Those are the remarks of Carl Luck, who could not be with us tonight. Barbara, can you tell me exactly the chronological order of when the letters were sent and what the fines were for?
Quickly, I can. It became $25 a day when Crossroads was out of compliance for quite a number of time. We were waiting for the installation of the interceptor.
Well, actually, we were just waiting for a plan. I think if
true.
we had received a plan,
That's true.
we would have stopped the $25
Correct.
fine.
That's what I'm looking for. I think I have a copy of the letter here, I think, that we sent. And so, yeah, I'd like to see the letter, Barb, if you...
There's a lot of them. I was gonna do the log, which might be a little
Yeah.
quicker.
Because I do remember that we sent several letters to Crossroads explaining that the fine was $25 a day. This is not something that should come as a surprise or a shock, because we've been in, I have one right here. I've got a certified letter here. I've got two here, certified mail 3.
What date?
Can we
Yeah, I'm gonna pull this.
Madam
That's
Chair,
it.
could I say something real quick?
Sure.
I'm not going to sit here and question whether you folks sent a letter, or, you know, I get the sense of what it was before my time, but I'm up to speed very quickly on how this works. I come from a feeling, my dad was the Department of Public Works Commissioner in the town of Ashland for 30 years of my life, so I've seen a lot of this stuff. I own a lot of properties, dealt with a lot of water and sewer bills. I just want to bring to the board's attention, if I could, for 10 minutes, I'll take 5 minutes, I apologize. 10 minutes is too long. This plaza, Crossroads, was David Brumbilla's first real estate endeavor to own a property. He didn't have a lot of experience in owning properties. As you know from speaking to him, we have a little bit of a communication barrier, even with myself. And I've been around Dave for 20 years, building his restaurants and his establishments, which have been very successful. But Mr. Luck here, who isn't here, makes a statement about it's not his problem, pretty much like, it's not our problem. What was your problem? When you designed the building and the building was built and you permitted it, it was given a permit with a 1,000-gallon tank for a grease trap. That was permitted and built by somebody else. Mr. Brambilla came along in 2006, purchased the building. It was that way for 10 years with the way it was. And if you don't mind the expression, somebody came out of the ether and said, hey, wait a minute, that building isn't in compliance. That building needs a much bigger tank. Now, when you say whose fault is it, we have professionals that we all pay. Everyone consults with professionals. There's building inspectors, there's engineers, there's designers. The building was permitted and built with a complete system that was installed, and he purchased the building. David's problem is this. This is where David stumbles. David can't understand. Let me put it this way. David is a very fair, very honest man. I'm saying that because I believe that. He takes on this endeavor of owning the building because it was some sort of real estate deal this gentleman that owned it talked him into. I don't even know the name of the man who built it, but I'm sure some folks in this room do. Or maybe some of the folks in this room were on the board when that thing was approved and when the grease trap was approved initially. But regardless, with respect to this board and with your request for him to correct something that was already once approved by the town, to put in a grease trap of its size, it didn't just appear there overnight. Somebody just didn't wake up and throw one in there because they felt like they should put a 1,000-gallon tank and cheat the town. I understand there's regulations. I know there's regulations. I deal with engineers every day. So the point that I want to bring forward is that there was a deficiency in a property. Mr. Brambilla had the lack of knowledge, and I apologize, I'm not using that as a crutch, but I will be honest with you. It is a very fair statement of not understanding this whole grease trap thing, where we do have them in other properties. They're always installed by the owners, and they're already installed on all our other properties. With that said, with no joking, with no exaggeration, I think it was $46,000 was spent to increase the size of this grease trap from 1,000 to 5,000 gallons. Wind River is a reputable company. I personally know Billy Rodenheiser from growing up as a kid, and he does some really decent work and does a lot of work. So between the $6,000 for the engineering of the plan, the $46,000 of installing the tank, and then the fact of getting a fine on top of it all, I can understand getting slapped on the wrist. I've seen that a lot. I've done it myself to folks. I've had it done to me. But where does the fault lie when a board that has to oversee the size of a grease trap, you have a Board of Health director or engineer at one point in time worked here in 2004, I think it was, or 2002 when the building was built, that approved that. So essentially, you as a board are telling Dave Brambilla, hey, listen, it's too bad. Somebody screwed up way back when, and you're going to pay to fix it. He did, and he paid dearly. So I can honestly tell you this. If I was involved with Dave when I knew about this previously, we wouldn't even be sitting here today. Because first of all, I probably would have had it all fixed and done before you sent your second letter. My job is to fix things. And I get paid to fix things. But the bottom line is, I feel strongly enough through David's communication with me about this matter, because we've been talking about, I think there was an email that went out, we had a hearing scheduled, it was postponed or something. I was supposed to be here one night a month ago or so. Is that correct?
That's the last meeting.
Yeah, so I went through all this, I was very well briefed on what was going on here. I was involved in getting the last few details taken care of on installing that grease trap and everything because of the winter conditions. They increased the cost on David on that. They hit water, I understand hydrology, they hit water on that property, and there was a lot of water. So they had to do a dewatering program. So, in short, not to bore you with my plea, to turn around and say that Mr. Brambilla ignored the letter, I am not going to dispute that. To turn around and say that it's no one else's problem but his because the building was built with it's too small of a grease trap falls back on you. It's back on you because it was approved at one point and it was designed and nobody went up there for 10 years, maybe more, and said, folks, you're not going to run a restaurant here anymore because your tank and your design is not adequate. But now, we got a letter from Mr. Luck who seems to say,
Okay,
we're going to shut you down because you're not going to pay our fine.
okay.
All right,
So,
there's my 5 minutes. Thank you for the time.
no problem. We're here to, that's why you're here, so we can
Thank
hear
you.
what you have to say. I'm looking right here, and Barb, you're gonna have to help me out if I've missed any. In my file, I have a certified letter from October 6, 2016, May 26, 2016, April 25th, 2016, July 14th, 2016. Do you have more letters there?
I do, but we started in February of 2016, so, and sent that one, and 216 was non-certified, 219 was certified, so it started back,
How many letters total do you have?
oh, some of them are the permit, 1, 2, certified letters?
Yeah. I have 3 right here. No, I have 4 right here.
5,
And I just joined the sewer commission midway through this.
6,
6, at least 6 certified letters. So,
7,
I'd like to hear what everybody has to say. I have something to say about this too, but we'll go around the table.
I guess I was a little confused why it took as long as it did to get him to take some action. And again, we were looking for a firm plan, even a preliminary plan, and we would have stopped the fines, I
Right.
believe.
And that's what the
It
certified
just-
letter
It didn't
says.
come, and it didn't come, and it didn't come, and it didn't come.
Okay, and that is a really, I can't even dispute that. I can't even rebuttal your point. So, with that said, I mean, we're gonna just,
We're gonna go around.
I'm gonna write the word ignorance.
Okay, do you have anything else to add, John?
Maybe, but let's hear.
Okay, Troy?
I do know that this is going back to 2016, if this goes back to 2016, that there have been times in the past where things have been waiting. As I'm looking at the notice of compliance, non-compliance, that was a letter actually that I wrote when I was on the sewer commission previously. And we went through a process of ups and downs on what we did and didn't do. I'm certainly not in favor of, there's 2 things. I'm not in favor of closing down restaurants in town. And I do have to take into consideration, actually there are 3 things. I do have to take into consideration that it was corrected, to me. That's important. Because our main goal is to make sure that fog doesn't go into the system. The 3rd point I have that concerns me in the statement that was read is that the sewer commission has already discussed it and decided it should be paid. And I take issue with that. I don't think that the sewer commission has already decided that.
No, I don't think so
No,
either.
I haven't. That was
Yes,
one
this-
person's
I
opinion.
wanted to make that
And
clear.
then-
It wasn't a letter from Carl, it was just his input because he wasn't going to be here.
Right.
It's one
But
commissioner's
it is his
opinion.
statements for
Yes.
Okay,
I apologize, I took it a little differently.
That's okay. Here's my feelings. I would agree with everything that John has said, that we asked for a plan, and if we had gotten a plan, it would have been over the fine, but we were ignored with multiple certified letters. I agree with Troy also. We're not in the business of shutting down restaurants. However, there's another point here. We had another non-compliant restaurant in town, and we had a similar situation, and we made them pay the fine. We did give them a 10% discount if they had a payment plan for paying the fine, and they paid each payment on time. We forgave 10%. So we set up a payment plan with them so that we wouldn't be strangling them right off. It was a fair payment plan over time. And we told them that if they stuck to the payment plan, we would forgive 10%. Is that right, John? Am I remembering right? Yes. And so we have already done that to a restaurant in town. So what might they say, watching our televised meeting, if they say, well, you held our feet to the fire, how come somebody else got certified letters and now you're gonna let them off the hook?
Is it the same situation where they had to replace the system, or was it just, they
It was, they were not cleaning the grease traps.
Oh, okay.
They were not cleaning the grease traps. They were not submitting the logs.
Okay,
Let
I
me
know,
finish.
you have more people to finish with, I appreciate that, yes.
Barb, can you tell me the history of this? Because some of this started before I joined the sewer commission. So I'm hearing what David has to say, that there was a system there that was insufficient, that was deemed insufficient. We asked for a plan.
Which we didn't know until, I need to make it clear that we didn't have a grease trap regulation until 2011. The sewer commission, sewer is fairly new in Lunenburg,
Right.
and the sewers went in early 2000s, and it was not an oversight, but we've been slowly accumulating policies that we need. And so the grease trap, we weren't even looking to say, oh, they need a bigger grease trap. We weren't even looking at them. So it was not even in the focus of the commission until 2011. So that's why.
So, with what you're saying is, at 2011, you brought in public sewer, and the interceptor, or the grease trap, is to prevent any foul products or grease, let's just call it what it is, into the system. But at some point, that grease trap had to have been installed and approved and reviewed, I would assume, by somebody in the town.
Was it a grease trap that had been in existence for the septic system? Jack?
Yeah, I'm the public works director.
Nice to meet you, Chief.
In case you can't tell by
I
the shirt.
I figured it out with the boots.
Yeah, so,
We all,
sometimes I'm the
we're
only.
gonna teach everybody how to tie shoes, that's.
Sometimes I'm the only one with the history
Yes.
of that particular situation, even though there are some that have a much greater feel for history of the town. And the sewer wasn't installed in 2011. The sewer was installed in, did it myself in 90.
0405.
Actually, his area was in the 90s.
2004, 2005. It was
But his area, on Mass Ave, it was in the 90s, so.
Yeah. So, thanks, John, but I was there to put the pipe in. So that was in early 90s.
Got it.
And so when we think of how long that has been in existence, we're not at 2011, we're at early 90s.
It makes
Okay,
my
so
situation a
I
little
think-
better and yours
well,
worse.
You know, I think the way I see this is the town was new at sewer. I wasn't working for the town then, but it was a new thing for the town. They were learning as they went. But someone is responsible for saying, okay, that's going in here. Now we jump ahead to 2011, when he started getting these letters. So he's been functioning, I don't know when.
No, 2016.
2016.
Okay, so,
I don't
but
wanna
at some
make-
point it changed from the
That goes
coach
from
house.
ignorance to crazy.
It goes from the coach house in, and I can't remember when this restaurant was built, frankly.
Well, it was an Italian restaurant, from what I understand,
Yeah.
going back as early as 2003 or 2002. I can't tell any of
Yeah,
you.
so it's somewhere in there. So it's
Yeah, right.
operating since that date, as it is. Is it the position of the commission that the fine of the amount, I'm not aware, because of his lack of response to letters?
Well, it was two things. It was because there was no plan submitted
Right.
to us.
I remember that.
To upgrade.
Yeah.
So in essence, the letters were correct me if I'm
Right.
wrong, John, the letters were requesting a plan. We weren't even requesting immediate action. We were requesting a
Right.
plan
Remember that clearly, yeah.
to meet
Yep.
the requirements. And then there would be a discussion on implementation, and
Right.
John, you were here at the time, not me. Then there would be a discussion on implementation that would have followed the delivery of a plan.
Correct.
How much was, how much,
And-
I'm sorry.
And so we made, I believe Barb made phone calls as well as sent letters. Barb made phone calls,
Yeah.
sent regular letters, and sent certified letters, and we could get no one to respond.
Yeah, I
You
remember.
got me.
I remember.
Well, yes, but this started a long time
What's the-
ago.
No, you would have had me a month ago. Believe me, I was ready to
Well,
come.
the fine, yeah.
What's the amount of the fine?
$25 a day.
5825.
58.25.
5,825.
Okay,
I-
so,
I'm sorry.
no, I want to, I'm following your track, so please go.
I don't have a vote.
I
Okay?
wish you did.
Well, maybe you wish I did. I've been, intimately involved in this, and I think there is something for answering correspondence in a timely manner.
Absolutely.
I think there's also something to be said for operating a business for many, many years under the permit that all involved thought was adequate. And when you take that, and I was there when they installed the new system, significant expense. My way of thinking, and again, I understand I have no vote, is the 5,800 or whatever you take to be, kind of balances off the fact that somebody in this town made a mistake.
I could buy that if there hadn't been all of this correspondence. And so, just,
Oh,
I'm going to ask a
you're
question
so
here.
kind to me, though. I mean,
I just want to
appreciate
ask a question. So Barb, are they up to snuff now? Are their grease traps meeting all the regulations at this point in time?
Yes.
Are they submitting logs on a regular basis, and are they current, or have any of their logs been late?
They don't need to submit logs because they have the external.
Okay.
Let me tell you, I don't know when the last pump out was. Pump out was in December.
Can I ask one question?
Can you just give me an answer here?
The external.
Was pumped on
trap was-
time?
Yes.
And the
Yes, so
When
Wind River was,
When was it determined that the system that they had was not able to be compliant? And when we were sending the letters of non-compliance, that was because of a lack of responding to the inspections, is that correct? The monthly inspections? The initial non-compliance?
regarding a small water report of missing T. So it was a small water inspection in February of 2016 that it started it. They were there for a
So they
cleaning.
couldn't be in compliance from before 2006, before then, until they got it replaced, is that an accurate?
We weren't saying, they were.
The system was not the system, the size of the system that was needed for the two restaurants. But
Yeah, but
when it was determined that there was a 1,000-gallon tank in there when it was supposed to be, what, a 5,000-gallon tank? Crossroads did have the tank pumped. Is it monthly, every 2 months?
Or weekly, I think,
Okay.
weekly, I mean, just
So
because
they were
understood.
having, so,
Yeah.
you know the history, they were having that tank pumped on a very frequent.
When did
basis.
that frequent pumping begin? Because I'm looking at a certified letter here from April 25th, 2016 that says, "The amount of grease and sludge observed in the tank greatly exceeds the state codes. The net result seems to be that this unit has not been functioning for some time and that significant amounts of grease have most likely gone directly into the sewer system. This is in direct violation of state, local codes and regulations. This is a very serious issue and requires your immediate attention." So
What's the date on that?
that is April 25th, 2016. So we don't just have the fines, and we don't just have the change in the regs which required updating the interceptor, we also have an observation from someone who went out there, I think it may have even been you, John, I can't remember.
I was there for that.
Yes, and where there, grease was going into the sewer system, and we got a certified letter sent out and had no response to that.
Can I ask one?
Go ahead, Troy.
So this is dated April 2016, and the first evidence that I have in this packet that I got was that there was a deposit received in January 2017. So that's when the process, it appears to have started on the engineering and installation. Is that correct?
That's correct. So,
So from April until January.
so I'm going to try to say this in the most politically correct way. I am very involved with Dave's business today.
Currently.
Currently. I'm not going to evade or walk away from the word ignorance. You get a letter in the mail, stuff comes certified, it might as well be a bank telling you your house is being foreclosed on and you don't understand why people standing in the front yard, you don't do anything. So the bottom line is, hands down, I can't argue with you about that. It's all documented. But what I can bring to the surface, which is what I started saying about ignorance. 1990 to 2016, and I'm being totally honest here. I don't know how long, sir, you've been involved with the DPW here. It sounds to me like you were a contractor at one time, putting in public utilities. Is that what I understand?
That was on the original sewer line.
So, right, so I this doesn't go back to his day, but somebody just didn't, today you have a lot better check and balances. When somebody came from your department or from your department, opens up a tank and says, holy, what the hell's going on here? The building didn't grow, the business didn't change, it's always been a restaurant, nothing changed. It was just a poor, let's call it what it is. It's a Volkswagen with a bad exhaust system for diesel engines. It was a screw up and somebody had to correct it. So at Dave Brumbila's expense, he bought a building thinking that everything was in compliance. He goes and finds out 10 years later that it isn't. He spent, and again, I'm trying to avoid saying something politically incorrect, but he didn't understand what exactly was going on here, because he's never owned a property and been responsible. This has always fell back on a landlord somewhere. But in short, his tax bill used to be $24,000 when he bought the building. It's $48,000.
This is interesting, but I really think we need to look at the stuff here. So I'm going to do, again, what I did a few minutes ago. It appears to me that what we're doing is we're discussing the size of the fine. Would you agree? Would you agree? Okay. So we have a couple of issues there. We have other restaurants we have required to pay their fine with a small deduction in the fine if they pay over time. John, do you have any alternate ideas for this situation?
No, I don't.
Okay. Troy, do you have any alternate idea for this situation?
I might ask what, before I make any comment about it, is what you might propose.
Here's
Good idea.
a perfectly good answer, a good question. I hope I got a real good answer. I find that you looking at other situations, every single situation has to be evaluated to see what was their reason, what was their reason. You know, it's like children. Do they all have the same problems? No. This is, I really believe that, and I'm not just saying this, it's very obvious. The building had a permit. The building was approved.
Yeah, we're not gonna go-
I know you don't
I
want to
agree
go
with
there, but wait, excuse me, ma'am. I want to say my point. You asked me, I was asked a question, I'd like to give the answer. We can keep not looking at that. So if you want to ask me what my proposal is, I think for what it cost us to date to repair and fix someone else's, some other predecessor's ignorance was far beyond $5,800. And that's my
Okay.
feeling.
All right, so I've asked John, and Troy, you want to comment more on that, what you think?
I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle of, when I say in the middle, I don't mean between people. I mean in the middle of this fine situation. I don't, while I appreciate there may have been some ignorance is no excuse for the law. There were notices, there were certified letters. At the same time, I do see that there was action and there was money put in. I'm not sure, I would like to put this matter to rest tonight because part of what the packet had was from council, and the annual permit comes up for renewal in July.
Yes.
And so I'd like to put the matter to rest with regard to the fine so that we can move forward and the restaurants won't be impacted in July. It seemed to me that you're saying that they shouldn't have to pay anything.
Well,
And that's,
what I said, yes, sir.
yeah, and I don't know that that's entirely reasonable or that this commission is ready to do that based on what they've already said. So I guess I want to hear.
Okay, it bothers me that many certified letters went out and were ignored. That bothers me, and that's not good. That's not good, because all we were asking for was a plan, and there would have been no fine. But I also hear what you're saying, and I agree with Troy that restaurants in town are a good thing. Businesses in town are a good thing. So personally, and this would take a vote of those of us here, when it's not just me, personally, I could see my way to 50% of the fine. That would be the best you would get out of me, as I said, in other
Paid
situations.
over time.
Paid over time. In other situations, we've only given a 10% discount. But given the argument that you have proposed, that the grand amount of money that has had to be put into this building to bring it up to code, I could see a reduction in the fine by 50%. John?
I would support that.
I too would support that.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
What's the total amount on the fine?
Is this something that's acceptable that we're going to
Before you
not
make a
get
motion,
paid?
Sure.
before you make a motion, can I make one more statement?
Yeah.
It's been brought to my attention that the fine continued even during the construction and the work being done. That was 50% more of the fine.
Barbara, is that true?
Yeah, it just kept running.
The fine should have stopped when we
When the
received the
plan
plan.
was received.
Yep.
If you're correct,
This thing
then it
goes
should
away.
it
Yes.
should reduce by,
Yes,
And
And
absolutely.
then we talk about negotiating.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
$25 a day was
When did we get the plan? That's what we need to
April
know.
25th through 7/14/2016.
Can you just tell us?
Came with warrant, did, I was gonna say, need to get a.
They had to get a
plan.
permit before they did this stuff in March. No?
Yeah. Plan was done in January.
January of?
This 2000.
Whenever the plan was presented to us. or
Yeah, you
Jeff,
must have a
whatever, Jeff.
plan presented.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't help you with the date.
I can't,
Well, when they had a contract and the date for the contract was January 2017.
We received a plan
They must have submitted a
12/12/16,
Okay,
receive, okay,
Well,
we received 12/12/16.
16.
right.
Okay.
And so we
when
had
did your,
done $25 a day
We started in October,
from
April.
April 25th
April
my
25th,
daughter's birthday?
2016.
to 12/16.
So can you calculate that out and see what
I
that
did
is?
it in 233 days, actually. 425 through 12/13 was
233 days times $25.
And that's your fine.
Yes.
That's what your fine consisted of.
Yes.
And that's the $5,000.
That's $5,820.
So we did stop fining as soon as we got the plan.
Okay, 'cause, again, miscommunication. Dave was under the impression that you continued giving him a fine.
We kept sending him the letter because he was not responsive, so.
Okay,
No, the fine ceased when we got the plan.
so lastly, before you make a motion, Madam Chair, you brought up a point just a minute ago about ignorance, about not responding to a letter. But you didn't bring up the fact of 1990 to 2016 of not having somebody as competent as you do today to know that there was a problem and that the system was not designed correctly.
But he wasn't fined for that time frame.
Well, but you should have been fined.
Well,
The board should have been fined. I mean, my position's gonna be this. I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm gonna cut to the chase, because we can end this meeting right now. Dave Rubio is a fair man. He's worked hard, he owns a property in town, he pays $48,000 in taxes, he pays sewer bills, he pays water bills, he pumps that. Oh, by the way, what's not mentioned, because the system was undersized, and it was pumped so many times that you can't even calculate how much money he spent to keep that system pumped down so that it would work properly. I don't believe this is the same case as any other case in your town. I think that this is isolated to its own merits. So I don't know what this whole fine thing is. Is this precedence? Because if somebody didn't respond to that letter, I totally told you, I agreed with you, I didn't disagree. But the penalty and the cost that has been put on him far
Well, I
surpasses.
would agree with you with that. So that's why I think it should be cut in half. And that's a big deal, that we are cutting it in half, or even thinking
And if he had
about it.
given you the plan in April of 2016, it wouldn't even be a fine today.
That's true, but
So this is more of a punishment than of a,
it's a deterrent.
I like that word.
And it's.
You can't
it's-
have people pumping fog into the system that's fats, oils, and grease. That's what we call it.
And the only way.
But don't get me
But
wrong.
we can't have them doing that and not responding to us at all.
Well, wait, time out, we gotta stop again. That happened when somebody opened up the tank and saw that there was a problem, correct? Back in April?
Right,
Yeah.
February of
All right.
February,
2016.
yeah.
And,
So they weren't fined from the date that it was found.
They weren't. They were
They
not
were
fined.
given time to
Right.
comply.
They were given from.
Because there's 30-day
Right.
notices.
oh yeah, so
and all that.
from February to April, they weren't fined, and then, of course, the letters weren't getting responded. Well, I get it. So.
All right, John,
But if we, sure, if we lived in a perfect world, it'd be great, we don't have to fine anyone, but what was the motivating factor in finally getting a plan?
Well,
Because he
I believe you.
He came to a commission meeting with
I'm sorry.
Wind River. And it sure seemed at that meeting that he understood. And then nothing happened, and nothing happened, and nothing happened, and we had to keep sending letters out.
Here's what I'd like to put on the table here. I would be willing to pay a $1,000 fine and pay it immediately. And honestly, that's against our better judgment about what happened here, and David still thinks that I don't care what he thinks. Here's what I think. I think he learned a good lesson, and the next time a letter comes, it needs to be addressed immediately. This is not the backwoods of some foreign country where you just say the hell with it. I understand your board, I understand what you're, I totally do get this. I mean, I've built enough developments and enough plazas, so I am not trying to ignore it. But going back to the beginning of time, I don't feel that this is a punishment from reducing your fine. I feel that it's a simple way of putting this thing behind us and forget about who's at fault anymore and why it got to this. Why did that system fail so badly? You have gentlemen like this, I'm sorry your first name, sir, I apologize, but he reviews plans now. You folks review plans. It's a much better system that you put in place. So this won't happen again. So, without going any further, that's the best I can do, that's the best I will do, and if
That's all you've been
not,
authorized to do.
that's it. and here's the thing, we'll invest money other way, in other means to get this thing corrected.
Barbara, am I correct if we levy a fine, they don't pay it, they don't get to use the sewer after?
It has to come before, according to
Right.
the, so in July, when it comes up for our annual permit renewal, there's the potential that the sewer commission could deny it.
For both, both the external permit and then the 2 restaurant internal.
Okay, there's two things I'd like to say. One, we've brought up Kebabalicious a couple times.
I don't really like bringing up other people.
I know, but it's been brought up.
That was in Carl's letter.
Right.
Oh.
The difference is David is the landlord, not the restaurant owner.
Right.
And we would be punishing the restaurant owners. Where versus Kebabalicia she was the owner, they were the owner of the establishment. I don't feel 100% comfortable punishing the restaurants for the landlord's delay. So, if they're willing to offer $1,000, I'm willing to accept that.
The other thing is I think initially we sent the letters to the restaurants. Did we send it, did we copy
They were copied on some of those.
Yeah, they were all copied. It was always.
They were always copied?
Yeah.
Well, you've said that you would be willing to accept $1,000. I'm willing to accept $1,000. I think our main goal is to keep the fog out of the system. I think the point is that you can't ignore our letters. I'm certain, I'm positive that if you come before another sewer commission and you've ignored them, then it won't go.
I can concur with that. Can I take a motion on that?
Do you want to say anything else?
I think I'd be stupid, wouldn't I?
Yes.
Yeah.
What did I say, 2,000?
1,000.
No,
Right.
no comment. Matter of fact, I'm just gonna.
I make a motion that we accept or reduce the fine for Crossroads from $5,825 to $1,000, and that will meet the commitment of the fine.
I'd like to amend that motion to say it's paid immediately, not over time. Do you have a check tonight? You want to pay it right
If you'll
now?
take one of my company checks and not theirs, I'll leave it with you tonight.
Can you amend it now?
Would you like cash or a credit card? I can do that as
Okay,
well.
so amended.
So amend.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Oh, I haven't said aye yet.
I just want to point out, it's really a fee, not a fine. I just would rather that be part of the motion.
Can I do that on my taxes any different?
So you want to say the whole motion, John, so we got it straight for record.
Thank you for your time.
I make a motion that we reduce the fee for A&D Crossroads from $5,825 to $1,000 to be paid immediately, and that fulfills their commitment to the penalty.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
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 It's unanimous.
Thank you.
There you
I'll
go.
go get a check and I'll be right back.
Payable to Barb.
John, did you bring the school checkbook?
I think we're writing checks.
You
Just
see, my
raise the
my
tax.
folder with paperwork comes in handy. Sometimes it's nice to have them all in front of you. Okay. Yes.
Second that?
I did.
Okay.
Troy.
Okay, so John, why don't you come and join us, and while we're waiting here, we can maybe get started. John is from the Lunenburg Schools. Londa?
John Londa.
John Londa. And you're here to discuss a waiver for schools' internal traps. That would be the Lunenburg Middle and High School, Turkey Hill, and the primary. Just hang on for 1 second while we get this.
Barbara, who does he make the check out to?
Town of Lunenburg.
Town of
Town of
Lunenburg.
Lunenburg.
I'll just open the corner here.
Yep. Okay, nice to have you here, John.
Do you want to read it all?
Let me read Carl's response to your agenda item.
Input his.
His input, yes, because he couldn't be here. This is Carl Luck's input. Schools, we already decided at your suggestion, we needed at least 2 years' data before considering a waiver to the interceptor. But that would still only be 1 year, the max we have ever allowed, even when the interceptor is not being used, like the variety store on Mass Ave. And this was sent from Carl to Barbara, so when he says you in it, he's referring to Barbara's input.
I don't understand the statement, the max we've ever allowed, even when the interceptor is not being used, like the variety store on Mass Ave.
Can you explain that, Barbara? Since he references
I
it.
can't.
You can?
So there was he has a Center Pizza on Mass
Oh, yeah?
Ave,
Mhm.
not the one in the center of town.
Oh, okay.
And they had an interceptor, which they didn't need because they weren't cooking food in there anymore. And they didn't want to spend the money to decommission it.
Because they actually were using a septic tank for their interceptor.
Right, originally it was a septic tank. And,
And it cost a lot of money because it was so big.
right, so we agreed that it would be, it still had to be pumped out once a year. So that's what Carl's referring to at
There's the history.
So, I'm sorry.
No. So what would you like us, what are you requesting of us, John?
So for each school, I have something that we'd like to do for each school. Most of them are very similar, but, so for Lunenburg Middle High School, so we're asking that we have a waiver to inspect the grease trap, 2 internal grease traps every 6 months, clean out at that time, and inspect and clean out the external interceptor annually. The middle school, high school has been on a schedule since we opened of July, December, April, 3 times a year. It opened in August of 2016, and we've been using the same service company, Action King Services Incorporated out of Lowell, and they service all our grease traps for all the schools. We routinely do the inspection, the servicing of them on the schedule that we've been doing, and we provided the historical data for the school since it opened. We started cooking at the school on August 27th, 2016. We have 2 100-pound grease traps, one for the dishwasher area, one for the pot sink area, and we have the 1 external interceptor. When the school was being built, I spoke with the service reps from Action King, asked them, well, we're having this new trap, this new external grease trap, and something we don't have at the other schools. I said, what's your experience? What's the appropriate thing? And they said, well, you could probably do an annual one. So that was what our initial thoughts were. On July 7th of 2017 was the first time we had it cleaned. It is a 4,500 gallon tank, has a hydraulic depth of 66 inches. At that time it had 1 inch of grease on the top for 1.5% level.
Yes.
We then, the school, is not like a restaurant in that we're only run school 180 days a year. We serve less meals than that because we only have 1 meal per day, and we don't even serve a meal for every 180 days. So it's close though, so we could say it's almost 180 days.
So it's healthy food.
Well, I would say this about it. So, cooking, what cooking goes on in schools tends to look a lot like reheating of things. We don't have any deep fat fryers. We don't have griddle tops. We tend to use convection ovens and steamers. We do have a range, however. The cooking they do tends to be just reheating things. And of course, that does generate, fat and oil and grease. But we're seeing coming out or into the 2 internal grease traps. Like I said, it's been rather consistent. We did our last cleaning here on April 19th, and it's pretty much what you've been seeing here in the history. So we looked at this, and then Barbara's Prodding said we should be looking at a 6-month, and I said, well, looking at it, it's just not a good use of taxpayer dollars, considering what our already experience was in July of 2017. So I, of course, have met with the School Sewer Commission since the first initial adoption of the grease trap regulations and provided some input to that. And so we had worked through this, this 3 times a year initially, and we haven't really come back to the sewer commission part after that. So this was allowed me an opportunity to come back and kind of put into place where I think we should be at. That would be a more appropriate level, ensure we're well below the 25% rule, and at the same time, not use taxpayer dollars. Maintain this, that we're not sending grease and fat out into the sewer system, that we're maintaining our piping system to the school, and also, effectively using taxpayer dollars. So when I did that, I said, well, okay, we never really had anything formally in writing from the sewer commission. So I thought that this would be a chance to go out and get this thing formally in writing, would then give us something we could put in files, and then, when
Go from there.
future folks come up to talk about it, we'll have something in writing that says this is what's been approved. So that's what we would like to do with Lunenburg Middle High School. Lunenburg Primary School,
Before you.
Before you go, we need to
Yeah.
probably do one at a time.
Right.
That's good.
Let's
Let's go around, start with John.
The internal grease traps, are those ultimately connected to the outdoor interceptor?
they are. And we do, so the big kitchens have their own, but we do have some cooking that can go on in the school. We have some special services classrooms that have a little range. And so there are other sources that could, that are all connected to this external interceptor.
That's good, that's good. Barbara, are we still using small water for external interceptor inspections?
When needed, we haven't
Okay,
asked them to do any for a while.
right, okay. And just, so the internal grease traps at the middle high school have been inspected 1, 2, 3, 4 times, correct?
Well, 5, because
Five.
so we just had one
Okay, 5.
April 19th. I did bring those, but.
And they're all
worked on those.
well within the 25%.
Well below the 25, 2% is well below 25.
Right.
These are our largest grease traps. Other schools have smaller ones, that could be anywhere between
Let's do the
70
school
pounds and
first.
70.
Okay, so the last time that the external, or the interceptor was inspected was July 2017, is that correct?
It was scheduled for the 17th. You keep saying the 19th, but the logs say the 18th, so I'm not sure.
Okay, so July of
which.
2000.
Oh, one,
Oh.
sorry. This is the most recent, I apologize. Sorry.
The interceptor was last inspected when, John?
So the external one was on 7/11/2017.
2017.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was from the 16 to the 17, 8/16 to 7/17.
Could we have small water go? And would it interrupt anything at school if we had small water go and open that up and look at it?
No, it's as long as they're not there at lunchtime, because it sits right outside the cafeteria and there's a seating area out there.
Yeah.
But
So
if they were
are you
early-
going, we need back to back?
Right, I guess,
Do they need quarter?
given the low
Let's let John finish.
percentages, given the low percentages, I guess, and given the low percentage of the external, it'd be great if the external was pumped tomorrow. Okay, but I understand you're not gonna do it during school. But if we could have small water go and inspect it using their, I forgot what they call that device.
Oh, yes, the
There.
thing that goes down and measures.
And they can tell pretty accurately how much sludge is on the bottom and how
Right.
much grease is on the top. And I would expect it's gonna be pretty low. So I would like that piece of information before we make a ruling on the high school. It's just my opinion.
I believe in the past, we've required back-to-back inspections. Am I correct on that, Barbara?
Yes, in order to.
In order to get a waiver, we've required back to,
Inspections.
inspection. So we have one here that says, 1 inch of grease. I agree with.
That's our cost too.
Yeah.
Not your cost.
Right, and I agree with you that we ought to have one more inspection to meet our standard we
requirement.
always, minimum
Right.
requirement that we have everybody do. So I would concur with John completely. Troy?
I wasn't clear about what you were asking. You referenced section 4, general provision, subparagraph K, and I can't find where that would give what you're asking is effectively that you only inspect once a year, is that correct?
I can show you that, I've got it here.
So we're looking to go from, currently we're doing 3 cleanouts on the internal interceptors to, we're asking to go to 2. So we would eliminate the April one
Right.
and then do,
There
you
is,
know,
it is in the thing.
I have 4, section K.
an annual.
I thought you were going to, eventually, we were going to get around to the 25% rule, but you referenced the 25% rule. So what you're asking is in excess of the 25% rule, is that right?
In excess. Not.
Do you
in
want to follow the
excess.
25% rule?
Yeah,
That's what you're asking
Yeah.
for,
relief under that.
which is not, it's not K, it's J. I think it's actually in definitions 3, it gives a better definition of what the 25% rule, and then again, it gives it in J. Grease interceptor maintenance. Section 4J, grease interceptor maintenance.
Can I read it out loud?
Yes, please do, thank you.
All required inspections will be managed, this is for J. All will be managed and paid for by the sewer commission as long as the establishment has paid the appropriate permit fee. It is responsibility of the food service establishment to at a minimum clean out the interceptor once every 6 months. Additional cleanouts may be required by the sewer commission based on inspections and the 25% rule or manufacturer's recommended cleaning level. The unit shall be maintained in an efficient operating condition at all times. Cleanout shall be performed by a licensed hauler. Top skimming, the hauler shall provide written documentation to the establishment, including percentage of breaks, I'm skipping, sorry. Owner operator shall maintain this documentation on site and have available. Any inspections, monthly depth measurements to comply with the 25% rule shall be documented on the log. Maintained.
Sorry.
So that's the J.
Okay.
The K is the waiver for
Yes.
grease traps and interceptors. I'm just trying to. In addition, food service establishment, second paragraph, may apply for a waiver from this regulation if the establishment can demonstrate that it
Oh, okay.
is impossible
Yep.
or impracticable to operate or maintain an interceptor at that location. Any request must include alternative pretreatment.
Well, here I'm reading right at the beginning of K.
Okay.
An establishment which generates very little or no fats, oils, and grease may request a waiver of the requirements of the SCDA and these rules and regulations. The request must be clear and specific and include the quantity generated, how it is generated, method of disposal, and other pertinent information supporting the request. All such requests will be reviewed and a determination made within 30 days of receiving the request. All establishments which receive a waiver will be required to inspect the grease traps or interceptors every 6 months and clean out the grease traps or interceptors at least once a year unless the sewer commission requires a more frequent schedule. So I think that what this situation you're falling into is very little or no fats, oils, or grease are being produced. And so you're, the title sentence there, you're using that to seek a waiver.
Yes.
Okay.
Barb, just a side note, the sewer use regulations need to be updated on the town website because that section on the town website is G.
As an appendix or in the body of the regs?
In body and the regs.
Can you look at this one?
No, it says the same thing.
It's just K here.
Yeah. That's what's on the website.
Okay. All right. Oh, this is the code. I wonder if that changed anything. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I would say that 1.1 inch over a year qualifies as very little or no grease, fats, and oils.
Right.
So, there must be clear and specific evidence for how much grease is generated. Thus, John, I guess that's where you get your back-to-back inspections.
I guess I'm finished.
Well, I'm just,
I didn't know you weren't, sorry.
Sorry, that's okay, go ahead.
I would just feel more comfortable if we had small water. Open the lid, look at it, report back to us. I fully expect that it's gonna be minimal, and I would be fine with granting the waiver.
Troy?
I don't see that it's necessary to get the additional inspection for me. I don't have a problem with getting it, it's just for me, it would, the school's demonstrated that they're within the 25% rule, and I don't really, I think that we have almost a year's worth of data.
Okay.
We have a year's worth of data,
2 years.
2 years worth of data, so it's up, I mean,
I'm kind of with Troy on this. If they were having 23 inches or 12 inches or 8 inches or 10 inches or 6 inches, but 1 inch, 1 inch is kind of really below the need. How would you feel about that, John?
You know, you're getting it pumped in July of this year.
Yeah, that's when we would next
Okay.
pump.
I guess I'm willing to grant the waiver.
Well, we don't have to grant it tonight because
Right,
they,
well, I
they
guess I
have-
would be willing to, you know, just with the condition that if we see something more than 25% in July, that we would have to revisit.
well, here's a possible solution. You're going to pump in July anyway. It says in the regulations that once you apply, we have to tell you within 30 days. We can't lollygum on this. We're going to have to move right away. Why don't you submit your July thing and you'll know by August, before school starts?
Correct.
So, you know, why don't we wait till July, you resend this, put yourself on a sewer commission agenda, or we'll put you on an agenda. When in July are you having it pumped?
Would either be the last week of June or it'll be the first week of July.
Okay, so I would say that we should have the schools on the agenda on our second meeting in July. By then you should have the data, and that means by the middle of August, you'll have the answer on your waiver, because we only have to do 30 days. Is that something that you can live with?
I can live with that.
Okay.
Is everybody
I
good
will
with
be
that?
there.
I'm fine. Next school.
Okay.
Okay.
So Lunenburg Primary School was built in 2005. It has two internal grease traps, one 70-pound and one 30-pound. It has been on the every 4-month schedule, July, December, April, since it opened, or since the sewer commission had established the grease trap regulations. And so we've been using the same vendor, Action King Services Incorporated out of Lowell. I've presented 3 years worth of data on the grease trap that services the dishwasher and the pot sink. The most recent ones were very comparable. The one we did in April of 2018. And so we're looking to we're essentially to have the waiver to inspect the grease traps and clean them every 6 months for that school. We do not have an external grease trap interceptor in that school.
why would you do it clean every 6 months? If you
Well-
don't have to.
You know, I think it's an appropriate level. You know, right now we're doing we're
You
doing
brought
3
up-
times a year.
You brought up taxpayer money, I was just wondering why you would do it if you didn't have to.
Well,
Once
you
again.
know, these are the levels you see at 3 times a year. You know, we don't want to be pushing it, but, you know.
John, how much does each cost, each?
To do a single grease trap is $125 per cleaning. And just for comparison, the external interceptor, which the one we have at the new school is 4,500 gallons, that's $1,350 to have that cleaned. Just in, so, right.
And are these all scheduled to be cleaned in July?
Yes, and we essentially have it all done one day. I go with them, and we go through all the schools and get everything done at the same time. And then all the reports are generated that day, and then they're within 48 hours or to the sewer commission.
Madam Chair, if they're all to be scheduled in July and they're all in the same or similar situation, can we visit all these at the same?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that we have 30 days from the time you submit it. If it all looks similar to what you're showing us tonight, and I'm looking at here, the highest one is 5%. So, and that's the third school down. So if they all come back like this in July, I don't see why you wouldn't come the middle of July to our sewer commission meeting, and then we have to tell you within 30 days. I mean, that would be
And the data's there.
the data appears to be
Right,
good.
And based on what I'm seeing here, I wouldn't anticipate a problem.
I would, if I don't see any change from what you're showing us tonight, I would also support a waiver.
In that light, I will request that you not consider my request at this time, and we will resubmit following the next service level at least charge.
So July, we'll see you in July.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Summer vacation.
Okay, Pat. Pat is hiding out there, I think. I think I saw him, yeah.
Hey.
Take care, thanks for coming, John.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Pat, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Good.
Good to see everyone.
Good to see you again.
Okay,
That's Rhonda in the corner.
Rhonda.
She's recording this,
Pat should know he's being
so you know.
so we're being videotaped.
Yeah.
And also Carla could not be with us tonight, but he sent his thoughts in ahead of time.
Okay.
So we're beginning each of our appointments by reading Carl's thoughts on the subject, and
Okay.
then we'll get into the discussion.
Yes.
This should be simple. We gave them a contract for preparing a compliant report. They know better than anyone what we had done, had access to the data, and supposedly understood the state requirements when they provided the firm quote. At our meeting, when I questioned the report, we were assured that it would meet the state requirements. They also noted that their strategy was to go in light and respond if there were questions or issues. As I stated then, I was not comfortable with this strategy or the lack of real value in this work for us. Well, now there are questions, and it sounds like they still owe us a compliant report. No more funding should be required or authorized. If they have a strong feeling otherwise, this should be discussed with complement of the full new sewer commission. Please ask them where the regulation change for I&I reduction for new larger connections that increased the contract cost stands as well. It has been a very long time, and if a developer gets an application in, even to planning, before we have this new regulation in place, our users will be liable for additional costs. So that's just Carl's input.
Okay. Sure.
So I read the report,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously the Department of Environmental Protection wants some more information.
Yes, and that is the sole reason that, that it wasn't accepted. And for the record, every single report that was submitted by Weston Sampson for every region client in the central region got it essentially exactly the same response as Lunenburg received.
Aha.
So this is not, Lunenburg is not singled out, it is all the same.
Was Weston Sampson being singled out? Because you started off by saying all the ones that...
Well, yes, we didn't see any of the other ones, any other of the responses, but it was all just requests for more information. In the report, in the original, in the regs, what they didn't request detailed flow metering reports from 7 years ago. We have that information and we can provide that to them. So,
Pat, may I just add too, just on
Sure.
John's, you had also mentioned that there's another region that Weston Sampson replied, and they had a different rep responding from the state that did not get, so it's all a matter of,
and it was a blanket statement. They reviewed the reports and they wrote down what they saw.
Right.
And
I'm going to ask Barbara a question. You're speaking of the person at the DEP who looked at it.
right.
So you're saying, you're hypothesizing, if I have it correct, that this particular agent who reviewed this region did this to everybody.
Correct.
So
And
they, so
Weston and Sampson did fine in another hold.
Weston and Sampson
I think we
defined
just
in
need
another
to be
region.
careful about general statements
Okay.
like that.
Yeah, there were similar responses to the central clients, there were similar responses to the northeast, and I don't believe there were any responses to the southeast. So, with that being said, that's just a general statement, general observation, from what I've seen. We have a very good relationship with DEP. We respect their opinion, and we'll respond to their questions and requests for information accurately.
Okay, so they have 3 points that they have asked for. So you want to go through those and
Sure.
just highlight what you think needs to be done?
Absolutely. So the first one was request for the 2011 flow metering report. That is how the initial plan was developed. It was conducted in accordance with the DEP guidelines. And I guess they just want to take a more detailed look at the report. The recommendations in that report were that the inflow values were excessive. According to the DEP guidelines, 80% of the total town's inflow, those areas needed to be inspected, and they were. They were smoke tested, and I think 98 or 99% of all the building inspections were completed. Every sump pump was removed, and it's my understanding that all of the sewer inflow defects that were identified have been removed from the system. So that seems compliant to me. I think they just want a little more backup on that. We did provide that information in the report.
Okay.
But we can provide the letter report and then the backup information
Now,
from the other reports
it
as well.
says the submittal shall include a risk assessment of sanitary sewer overflows based on the 5-year 24-hour storm event.
Yes.
Is that going to be in there?
Well, in our opinion, we did that, so we're going to look for more clarification. I actually have a meeting with them and another client next Thursday, so we're gonna get some more clarification on that one. The town of Lunenburg has never had an SSO, according to any town records that's ever been reported. There are no capacity issues in the town. We actually submitted an analysis in the report that showed back on September 6th and 7th, 2008, a 10-year 24-hour storm passed through the general area, and the town didn't have a reportable overflow.
So why, I remember reading that. So
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised about this sentence.
Yes. Yeah, it was a consistent statement that was made. So we're looking for some clarification on that.
So you'll be getting clarification.
We will be getting clarification
Okay, good,
and find out exactly what is being looked for there, because as far as that seems like a feasibility analysis.
Okay.
To look at similar rain events, and if you don't have an overflow,
So
then there's capacity.
where Lunenburg never had one and they're asking for it, what is the implications of that, or what are they?
I'm not quite sure what more could be asked for, but I will reach out and get clarification on that.
Thank you. The next one was submit a revised sewer system evaluation survey with a definitive schedule of when actions will be completed by. The SSES should be developed based upon the results of the flow metering. Please submit the revised SSES by June 30th, 2018.
Okay. So we have the SSES. This was included as page 3 of the IA control plan. It has 6 priority projects. We didn't put exact dates
Right.
in there. We could add a column and add some dates that the town is comfortable in going with. If you want to call year 1, year 2, year 3, I mean,
The only thing about that is, wasn't there some discussion about that, John?
Well, I think we hadn't completely decided amongst us
Right,
the order.
right.
So
Okay.
we didn't want to put specific dates,
Right.
but we were gonna be held
Sure.
to those, and so that would be my question now.
And I think Carl had some very strong feelings on some of those dates and which endeavors were going to be prioritized over others, if I'm remembering correctly.
Oh, yes.
Yes, so I guess we will have to probably table that until he's back. I think he wants to have input into that. I think that's
Okay.
fair. What do you
Right.
think?
I agree with that, but in the meantime, certainly,
Are there any time-sensitive issues?
Well, yeah, it says they want that by June 30th.
By the 30th,
June.
yeah.
So it would have to be discussed at the next sewer commission
Correct.
meeting. Can we put that on the agenda for the next sewer commission to prioritize the dates of the activities that are listed in the DEP report that Pat prepared? Because they're already listed there, but I know he had strong feelings about which ones come first, second, or third, and
Sure.
he'd done a lot of research on that, so we should have his input on that.
Mhm.
Do you think, John?
I think that's a good idea.
Is there anything beyond the prioritization of these, that data that you'd have to collect that would be time sensitive to get the response to DEP?
No, I think
That's what I really,
that we're just holding off and pulling things together, and going to submit packages. There is budget left in this project to deal with back and forth.
Okay.
As far as this is concerned, we're not at the budget limit. There were hours set aside to deal with,
In other words, you're saying
Responses.
you're not gonna charge us more for doing this?
well, for pulling together the reports and
Right,
the
that's
response, it's in our budget to
Okay.
make sure that the town is compliant.
Okay.
There will be more charges,
There will be more
because
charges.
they were budgeting for the responses to the E DEP.
Yeah, there won't be any charges over our initial contract cost.
Okay.
Do you remember, what was the original contract cost? I don't know.
Was-
I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, it is what it
Say
is.
5,000 or
I think
30.
so.
Yeah, 5 or 6,000?
Yeah, I think so.
So there's money remaining in that not to exceed price to address any comments.
Which at the same time also includes the regulation that Carl pointed out. I did talk to Pat, and
Mhm.
we were going to have, he's going to have that to us in June, by the end of the fiscal.
Yeah, I actually sent it off today.
Okay.
It's a paragraph that will be,
Is this about the
Incorporated.
meters? No.
it's
No,
a
this
4-to-1,
Okay.
just a 4-to-1 removal fee for any
Oh, yes.
applicants that apply
Yes.
for over 15,000 gallons per day.
Yes.
And that's what Carl was alluding to in his
Yes,
comments.
okay. All right, so number one, you're going to ask for clarification on.
Mhm.
Number two, and you're gonna submit the data you have. Number two, we're gonna get back to you because we have to meet and discuss the time and the priority of those projects that are listed there.
Yes.
And let's look at number three. The town shall provide Mass DEP with a GIS sewer map in electronic format, preferably shapefile or GEO database of its entire municipality-owned sewer by June 30th. Do we have such a map?
You do, yes.
Okay.
All set.
All set.
You
So
just
that's-
email that up right
So
now.
what you're gonna need from us then is prioritizing of those projects that are listed there already. And really, we should wait till, Carl has very strong feelings on that, and he's done a
Yeah.
lot of research, so we should probably
Mhm.
wait for him
Sure.
to do that. Are we all set then? Barb?
I would like to state that we weren't anticipating any, all the work that's been done in town has been in accordance with the DEP guidelines. Just asking for more reporting. I don't see anything that stands out here with anything else that I've seen, so that puts you guys at a comfort level.
Careful
We didn't,
how you say.
it's,
Don't make us feel too comfortable, again, that's all I'm
Right.
saying.
yeah, no, they can, yeah, everything was conducted in accordance with the guidelines. And
Troy, you have anything to add, please?
the only issue that hasn't been resolved, and I guess it can be resolved at the next meeting, is the financial impact of it, so that,
Well,
because
I'd
that
like
was
to
one of
hear
the.
what you have to say.
Well, that was one of the concerns that Carl raised, and I guess without hearing any compelling argument against what Carl had to say about that, I would feel similarly to Carl.
That's what I was trying to get at before. I feel similarly to Carl on that too. You know, he said, we pay for a compliance report, we get a compliance report. We should not have to pay any extra. John, how do you feel about that?
Yes.
So I guess what we're.
Short answer is yes.
Okay. I guess what we're saying is we don't feel we should be using more of the budgeted money for this compliance report, because you probably should have included all these things ahead of time. That's sort of,
Well, I guess I have a couple things to say. One, we chose not to put specific dates on those projects.
That's
And
true.
I think I had some input.
me too.
I
I agree with
suggested
that.
the titling at that
Right,
current priorities.
right.
So that was our decision. And if I hear Pat correctly, the DEP is asking for things that you had no way of knowing they were going to be asking
Correct.
for.
Okay, well, yes, Jack.
Have you submitted an invoice for this yet? To us?
To date, there have been probably 2.
Oh, okay, there's some along the way.
Yes,
Um,
as the work has been
Yeah.
conducted, and then we had the,
We signed or I did sign the contract for
Yes.
X amount of dollars.
mhm.
And I'm pretty sure 5,000 was the contract.
Barb, I'm getting there.
So I guess
It
it's
doesn't matter, I just-
sewer rate.
It was,
there.
it was 5,000.
Yeah, 5,000, and we have, they have submitted 3770 to date, so we have 1230 remaining on there, part of which was going to be for that regulation,
Okay.
so.
Are there any invoices that have been sent that you haven't received? Or is that?
I have only through 1229, so I haven't had any work for 2018.
Yeah, there's one on the way, or that will be on the way for the development of the 4-to-1 eye removal clause.
Yep.
Not a lot, for an hour or 2.
You know, getting back to what John said, I clearly remember that we did want to not put dates and prioritize that list.
Which-
However, I also clearly remember Pat telling us it wouldn't be a problem. I mean, because,
Right,
you
I
know,
think Pat is admitting that
it's
he
different
was
this year.
surprised at this.
Yeah.
It's different this year. Or,
Well, this is the first time they've ever
Right.
requested this information from any
right.
community.
I didn't word that right, but it sounds like they're asking for information that you wouldn't have been able to anticipate they were looking for, based on their requirements.
No. Because it's all described in the report.
Right.
So you say that you conducted a flow meter report in 2011, and those are the results, and the resulting projects, they're requesting the detailed report, because they want to just look into the report, detailed information.
Well, and once you have the meeting, the next meeting, and you all prioritize, decide on dates, what kind of work are we talking about on your end once you have the dates? A column, adding a column and adding the dates, right?
Yeah, and just providing the electronic reports and just a final letter, response, drafting a letter for Jack to respond. And including the electronic
So
attachments.
you don't foresee that's going to be a big expense?
It will be a few hours.
So,
I wouldn't think.
are you saying that, or maybe is what Carl is saying, you don't think we should have to pay any more, or we shouldn't have to pay any more than the $5,000? Which are you saying?
Well, I think that your point, John, is well taken, that we said we're not going to put priorities on them, however, we were told that we didn't have to.
Right.
So, you know, and the fact that they've never requested the details of the studies before, or they just asked what study and now they want the whole report. That's, you know, unforeseen. So, I don't know.
So I think what I'm hearing from you, Pat, is it probably wouldn't go over the $5,000, the additional work you
No.
have to do. So,
No.
okay.
No,
So
it will not
I have
go
no
over. I'm comfortable
problem
with that.
going up to
Yes,
what we contracted them for.
I am too.
Okay.
Okay, we're good then. Yes, Jack?
Doesn't have much to do with the DEP report, but I have been in a situation with this group or other similar groups, and not with Pat. I just think we want to be sure, and I think you've just done that, but pardon me for redundance. We're allowing him to go to the 5,000 level, hoping that he doesn't, but we're allowing that.
Well,
Because I
there's
think-
only one problem with that. We're supposed to also, included in that $5,000 is that regulation rewrite,
Right,
correct, Barb?
right.
So if we're at, what were we at? There's 1,230 remaining. So I guess what I'm gonna ask you is, can you get us a compliant report and rewrite the regulation for the
The INI 4-to-1.
INI 4-to-1 with the $12,030 that's remaining?
Yeah, for the not to exceed, yes.
Not to exceed that for both of those
Not
things?
to exceed the 5,000.
Yes, for both of those
Right,
things.
so my point I was trying to make is it's great, we get that settled, because there's nothing worse than someone leaving with the understanding they're gonna provide information or do a task and then have to come back
Let
and
me
say,
do
no,
this.
we're not gonna pay you.
Let me
for
do
it."
this. Can I please have a motion that we are approving Weston and Sampson to go up to the $5,000 budgeted amount if needed, which will include a compliant DEP report and a rewriting of that regulation?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Well done.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. There you go.
I have time.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
You got
Is
it.
this
I gotta
yours?
stop it back.
Oh, yes. Thanks.
Okay, next on the agenda is the town meeting. Recap on 3 budget articles and Tilton Ave inclusion in sewer area. Carl's letter says everything passed. I watched it all on TV unfold before me, and everything did pass. There was some debate on some of the issues, but that's old news now because everything passed.
I'm just curious, did the selectmen approve the Tilton?
Split, but they did approve it. 2-2, there's 5 of them, 2-3.
2 to 3? Against or 2 to 3?
2 against, 3-4.
The only procedural, I had one question, it was procedural, is how articles appear on the warrant. And it was my recollection that there was to be some sort of information back from, was it Wright Pierce, on whether or not Tilton Ave was the area of needs. And we were gonna spend like $1,500 to do that. And I was wondering if it already went onto the warrant and it was already going through for approval. That's what I didn't
No.
understand. So you're
The
shaking
response
your-
to that survey where we didn't get 2/3
Yeah,
kiboshed that whole thing
Okay.
of going to Wright Pierce, getting any engineering, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. So the only article on there was to allow Tilton to be included in this sewer service area.
and it was based on the old data. The map that
Right.
was provided was the old data that
Right.
was, okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
That was my
nothing-
question.
There was no monies expended.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other comments on the
Authorized
town
or
meeting?
expended.
Okay, minutes of 4:10:18. I have them in front of me here. Did you all see them? And does anyone have any changes? I have no changes. Troy?
None.
No changes.
No changes. Okay, I'll take a motion to
I
approve.
move that we approve the minutes from the 4/10/18 sewer commission meeting.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, minutes approved. DPW systems update.
Okay.
Take it away, Jack.
Okay, I think you may recall a meeting, I don't know how many weeks ago, where you voted to allow small water, SWSS, a budget of $35,000.
Yes.
And come back with a list. Here's the list.
She got 2, I got 1. Oh, no, paper. Oh.
Oh, there's 2. Oh, okay, you've got the original.
Doesn't look like I need that.
You've got the original, here you go, Joe. That's just a qualifier for the thing.
Okay.
These are fairly,
There's good one.
What they've done here, based on the meeting we had and further discussions with me, was number one, stay under the 35,000. We didn't want to come back over 35 and have to deal with that. And concentrate on the largest item, not necessarily size or cost, but the largest item in terms of the function of the station, which are of course the pumps, and combine that with the lead time to get them. I have notes here, these are 9 to 12 weeks out. Every place you see flight, horsepower, 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 horsepower. So, you know, we've already allowed them the budget. I think it's an appropriate courtesy for the commission to let them know where the money's going to be spent. Frankly, I didn't know what some of these things were until they were described to me. But from top to bottom, synopsis is, you know, one pump will fit, you know, certain stations, the Mass Ave station, I mean the Dana Street, the Leominster Road, the big stations, and then we've got a pump that'll fit Francis and West, and then we've got another pump that'll fit Electric Ave and Twin City, and then one that'll fit Mass too. So we're pretty well, you know, we've got 10 cars in our garage, and they're all different or somewhat similar. So we've got spare tires for all of them, even though maybe one tire fits 3 of the cars. If you'll, you know, allow me the primitive explanation.
Yes.
The things that start with 4 telemechanique those are all for large pump stations, from 360 to 88 down.
Sounds frank.
It does, doesn't it? It does. The one thing, we did not get a spare for Meadowwoods, because the spare from the one pump, first of all, number one, you know, we're taking a chance that that's a newer pump, and also that a spare pump for Meadowwoods would be $17,000. So, yeah,
What's so unique about that one?
the rise to the run.
Okay.
That effluent gets pumped from Meadowwoods
Powerful
to the
pump.
top of Arbor Street. My suggestion after the conversation was that, you know, I think this is a great start. I think this is good foresight on the part of the commission. Perhaps we'll look at our numbers next year, look what we have here next year, meaning the next fiscal year, and see if there's someplace, some other holes we want to plug. So I'm going to go, I've signed this off, I'm going to go ahead and order these. That's that.
Well, before we go any farther, I think I should read Carl's comment on this section of the agenda.
Oh, okay.
DPW, we still haven't seen the task 1 quotes for the MH work. If they spring them on us at or just before the meeting, the decision on contractor award should be delayed until the next meeting. As long as we encumber the funds before the end of June, maybe a couple of weeks before, the funding will be carried over and it will not affect our FY19 plan. There are still some of the RFB questions that need to be addressed before issuing a contract. For further I&I activities, he says this is for the DPW, right?
Well, we
Right.
could start, that's one
Okay,
section right there, Joe.
Right.
It's on
Okay.
And those specifications did go out. We anticipate that cost, the engineer's estimate was $18,000, so it's well below the $50,000, which triggers the next sort of advertisement. They went out, we're going to, at the very latest, they're required to get those figures, if they're interested, by May 15th for a task 1.
May 15th.
And then it will be the decision of the commission.
This feels like remote participation by email.
Well, it was shared with me, and some of it was shared with John by phone. It was shared with me by Barbara on email, so I feel everyone needs to have it in front of them. We don't have
That's
to,
a-
it's not a vote. We can vote however we want, but
That's a problem too, sharing it with 2 members is open meeting law violation.
yeah, I'm gonna comment on that later, but let's
While
just do
While it's
DPW.
brought up, I want to make the comment.
Can we,
Okay, so
could we just go back to the spare parts, I just
Yes.
have one question.
Yep.
The Meadowwoods pump.
Yes.
I understand why, it's a newer pump. Is it, do you know if it's a flight, is it a long lead time item? Just
I'm
curious.
sure it's a long lead time. He mentioned that today. He did not mention the kind of pump it was, but he did mention the amount.
Okay.
It seems to me, John, when we look at these pumps town-wide, that there's a long lead time on each of them.
Yeah.
How old is the Meadowwoods pump compared to the others? Do we know?
Well, the others are 2000, 2001 installation. And Meadowwoods, and I might need some help here. Do you remember when we did Meadowwoods? 5 or 6 years? Oh, you know what it was?
2009?
It was a 2008 ice storm.
Yeah.
2008
it's 10
Meadowwoods, so
years.
it's newer.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So it would be wise for us to begin to maybe put a little money away.
Or
How
look,
much was that pump again, Jack?
excuse me?
How much was that one?
$17,000.
Okay, I heard it right.
Which in and above, it, it doesn't fit obviously in the 30. I think if it fit under a window or an amount that we had budgeted, would have been the next purchase. It doesn't, and it makes, maybe makes good sense next year, as you say. We look at this and we store things at the DPW and use them as needed.
Should I read the rest of this, or should we do more discussion on this?
I'm done,
Commissions.
I just didn't want
Right.
You good with this?
I
This is on its way.
I am good with this. We already voted to approve this,
Yeah,
and we
this
did
is a-
not require another vote.
Yeah, I think it's an appropriate courtesy.
Right.
I think on some of the stuff that still needs to be addressed, or that's future or whatever, it seems like those are opinions that, well, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, do you have anything else for the DPW report, Jack?
Well, just that, and it kind of got lost in the discussion here, but May 15th, I don't know if you heard that, Joan.
Yeah.
We're gonna
I did,
get
I wrote
those
it down.
task funds, then I'm gonna have to make it solid with the town manager as to how I went about the procurement. And if it's acceptable to her, I'll bring it back, as was always the plan, in right away, because it's something we could get on. We could encumber it once we have a contract. He's correct. Would still like to get it early or late in the spring. We're already mid-spring, late in the spring. If not, we can, excuse me, encumber the funds and do it in the fall, or in more of a wet time, certainly. So
Since I've started on this path, Troy, of
Yeah,
reading this,
go
I'm gonna
ahead.
finish. For future INI activities, and this is Carl Luck's letter again, for future INI activities in FY18, I feel strongly that we should get quotes on collecting and using pump station data to determine where our INI issues are, at least at a high level. We have lots of past data that can provide a quick indication and then carry that forward for 12 more months. I would volunteer to write a scope of services for this when I return. I already have it in draft form. Elizabeth Street unknown INI still needs to be addressed. And I would like to formally again request the list of Mass Ave manholes that have frame and cover replaced, as well as what the INI reduction was as a result of this work. You don't have to address that right now unless the commission wants it addressed. I personally don't. John?
No, I don't think it has to be addressed tonight.
Troy?
The only thing that I might address is that and some of this feels like you're getting involved in the day-to-day.
I would agree with Troy, yes.
if I may, and I know just the worker be here, I don't think it's a great idea for, and I give Carl a lot of credit, he's very detail-oriented and very, very intelligent. But I don't think it's appropriate for a commissioner to write the scope of
I would agree
services.
completely.
I agree.
I agree.
That's why
It
we
should be
have
an
engineers.
engineer's.
He does, as well as you all have, opportunity to review.
Right.
I think it's probably not the way we want to go.
I think that is an
That's
excellent
just a
point.
suggestion.
What do you think? Do you think we can make a motion to go with the engineers and,
Well,
We aren't even,
we
already
already
did
talked,
at that
this is a
point,
whole
yeah.
methodology that Carl has brought forth to the commission on at least 1 or 2 occasions. I spoke to our consultant on this, and, he can speak for himself. I think the commission has to agree that this is an appropriate methodology before we go to the engineer for a scope. I'd like to have the engineering company speak to that first. And that may be, if it's the pleasure of the commission, to go that route before we decide tonight that we're going to use that as a method. It may very well be a method.
I don't think it's something we need to make a motion.
No, okay.
We can make a motion about rules of how operation, but that's, if the commission wanted to do that, on the
Yeah.
scope of work.
In other words, we could say that an engineering company will do the data
Scope of
analysis
work.
for the scope of work.
I probably would abstain.
Okay,
If
then
I was
let's,
asked to vote on that tonight, that's all.
Jack, that's point well taken, and
Yeah.
I agree with your
I
position.
agree, just,
We're just gonna table that for now and
Fine,
move on.
listen, that's fine. I
Okay,
appreciate you listening
Well,
to
we'll
me.
probably change
I
anyway.
understand I have no vote, so I just, comfortable bringing it up.
okay. Anything else for us?
I don't believe so. As I look down the agenda, I think that's it for me, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, if
This was-
something's at the top of your head.
Swiss March report was the last one on the agenda.
Yeah.
If there was any issues at all.
You did email that to us?
Yeah.
Looked good to me.
Now with that, it's been somewhat of a success because if you recall, there were a lot of problems with those reports. I don't think anybody was pleased with the reports. And I think they've made good progress, and I was a little concerned that extending them to once a month, although I thought that was appropriate, left themselves open for some detail that somebody may want, but no one has brought that up, so we're going to stay with that. I know that was done as a test, or we're going to go once a month and see how that worked out. It seems to me,
There was one field that was added that I was very pleased with that, and I'm sorry I didn't print it out.
yeah, but I mean, and obviously if there's problems, you let us know and we'll correct them.
I think there
so far,
was no outstanding there were no outstanding issues or problems.
Yep.
And there was a field there for them to respond and give updates
Yeah.
on when there was a problem.
One thing I did make clear to them was that if there is an issue,
Yeah,
that they
close the loop.
close the loop. That's always been
Yeah.
something, but, knock on wood, I met with a representative today, and there are no issues. The generator company is currently about 50% through doing their small service, as it's been called. Haven't been any issues, so we're hoping that there will be no issues.
Thank you.
yeah, I just have one question.
Happy to answer.
On 3.5, West Street called out pump one pulling high amps and tripping out. Al to go out and diagnose. Okay, I'm assuming he did.
Can I see that?
Sure. I'm assuming if he found any major problem or repair, he would have said something.
Well, there's a good example of not completing the loop.
Okay.
I'll make a point of that, to get that loop completed.
That was the one on 3.5.
Yeah, called Al to go out and diagnose.
Yeah, we need to know
Other
that
than
there's a
that, I think this
conclusion
is
to
fine,
that.
yep.
That's definitely a point where they're lacking.
Good point, John.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your help. I know, I'll say that, candidly, I know Troy can be a pain in the neck with this open meeting law. But from my perspective, because you all come and go and have come and gone for 18 years since the sewer was put in, sometimes as laborious as his comments are, it's the only thing for me that keeps people in line, for lack of a better term. And if it were not for these comments at some time, at some point, I think we may be going down a road that would be difficult to return from. The open meeting law, I went to an hour or 2 hour long session, and even after being involved in it for so many years, it was eye-opening. And I think that we all, have something to learn with that, and I think we're all trying very hard to learn with that. So I, for one, don't mind the comments because it keeps us in line, so.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Barbara a procedural question here, and certainly the rest of you can help me. Can I alter the order of things on the agenda? I believe we've done it in the past. So at this point, since we've got this on the table and you're still here, Jack,
Sure.
I would like to talk about open meeting law complaint and violation and things that are happening. First, do we have an update on the open meeting complaint? Well, we have Carl's response here. Carl's letter says, I feel strongly that you as business manager need to inform Troy that no work was authorized and no financial commitments made by anyone. As such, he should be encouraged to withdraw his complaint before it costs our users more in legal fees to defend this misinformed allegation.
It's allegation.
I know, it's not spelled right, but anyway, here we go. I feel that the cost to the taxpayers for violations in open meeting laws should not be borne by the person who reports them, but that falls to the person who made the open meeting law violation. I attended the open meeting law training.
In the evening?
Yes, in the
Yeah, I
evening.
went to the afternoon
It was
first.
excellent.
Yeah.
It was excellent. And I have 3 comments to make after attending that training. The first comment, the town attorney asked me to make at a sewer commission meeting, so I'm going to make it. When we discussed our open meeting law violations, I said that I would approve the remedies that were discussed, which were simply talking about it at the meeting, as long as all members of the sewer commission would attend open meeting law training. And we went around the table and everyone said that yes, they would do that, yes, they would do that, yes, they would do that. Yet when the open meeting law training came around and there were 2 different times of the day in which it was offered, Troy and I were the only ones who attended. Adam said I should bring it up at the meeting. I understand there was a medical event that required John to be undergoing medical tests, and so I get that, but no one else came. Open meeting law is there, in my opinion, from what I took away from the meeting, for 2 reasons. One reason is to make sure that each of the commissioners has an opportunity to equally voice their opinions on the issues being debated. When 1 or 2 commissioners get together ahead of time, then they send an email to a 3rd commissioner or a 4th commissioner. Those ideas are being enforced and discussed without the rest of the commission listening to the discussion, and I have a problem with that. Number 2, we have a right, we have a duty to our constituents, to the people who elected us, to function within the limits of the law. None of us are above the law, not even for 5 minutes, not even to make it easy, not because we might forget, not because it's not easy. Attorney Costa made it clear at the open meeting law training that the state has valued transparency over efficiency. And that's the law, and that's what we have to live within. We owe it to our constituents to have a printed agenda so that they can come to the meeting to hear all of the debate on a topic, not just some of the debate, because people have had their private debate ahead of time and they're not saying everything in front of everyone. Every subject that is before this commission should be discussed at an open meeting that has had a posted agenda so that our constituents, the people who we represent, have an opportunity to come to the meeting and hear the full debate. And every commissioner deserves the right to hear every other commissioner's ideas on the subject. It is not always the most expedient way. I had a problem this week when I realized that I was being given some of Carl's ideas ahead of time, no one else was getting them, and then I realized he had a phone discussion with another commission member on the same ideas. So therefore, there was a phone discussion and there was an email that included 3 commissioners, and I did not feel that that was appropriate. So I am requesting that the rest of the commission, at some point in the near future, get the open meeting law training. And Barb, I assume that that includes you as well. I don't want to hear that it was quicker, easier, or wouldn't forget again. I want everyone to go within the limits of the law.
Joan, I think that point is well presented, and I think you hit on the perfect topic, which is the municipal way. They value transparency over efficiency. that translates directly into the procurement process. And for someone who's trying to get just a ton of work done in a short period of time, the procurement process weighs me down like a ton of bricks. Nevertheless, it's the rules of the municipality. And it's difficult for those who have spent their whole lives in the private sector to now turn around and understand that this is the way things have to happen. And I think that you're right on. And just, you know, to end the comment is that it's also online.
Yes.
The documents. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's nice when he's there, you can ask him questions. It surprised me sometimes just the phone calls. And I think that's the minutia of it. In my time here, I've seen it really abused. Not necessarily by this group, but just other commissions.
Well,
meeting.
I also asked Adam, and then I'll get to you, John. I also asked Adam a question because it had been presented once that if a commissioner sends an email saying, stop, this discussion needs to stop, it's a violation of open meeting law, is that a violation of open meeting law? And Adam told me no. He said the Attorney General would never say that was a violation of open meeting law. And I specifically asked him that question because it had been presented to me that that's a violation because it's an opinion. And Adam said there's no way, I don't know if you were there when I asked that
I was
question.
there.
He said there's no way
She asked
that the Attorney General would say that's a violation of open meeting law. John?
I agree with everything you've said, Joan. I have one question / concern. I mean, you did make the motion back when Adam was reviewing the
Right.
complaints. Contingent upon everyone attending the open meeting law.
Right.
So, the fact that not everyone did, what does that mean? Are
Adam's,
we not compliant with the response to the Attorney General?
it was not in the original remedy package, but Adam said that I should mention it at the meeting, at a televised meeting, and that the rest of the commission should get open meeting training at the next available opportunity. And that would include Barb.
I agree with you, and I know that I can be a pain in the neck with the open meeting law, with regard to the open meeting law. Unfortunately, it is one of the only tools that I have in order to address many of these issues. And the comments that go back and forth, and it was revealed tonight that there was another open meeting law violation. And one of the things that that Attorney Costa said was that ignorance is no excuse for not knowing the law. And if you choose not to attend these meetings and you continue to violate the open meeting law, then it will be considered by the Attorney General's office intentional.
Yes, he did say
And
that.
it will be, and it is potentially finable by the offender by $1,000. So one of the goals and one of the reasons why this all started in the first place was to not get these long emails that we are not able to read or consider at the meeting. There are comments that Carl makes at the meetings that I appreciate and that I agree with him often on. And I would like the opportunity to hear them and have them presented to me. And I would also appreciate the respect. And I'm hoping that the respect that the next member of this commission, because I won't be running again, is better than the respect that I received while on this commission at this time. Because I think it's disrespectful to the rest of the commission to move about this way. And I think it's disrespectful to be accused of not being prepared for the meetings or be accused of not knowing as much as the other person. I will acquiesce to the fact that I don't know as much, but I still think that it's disrespectful to the other members to think that you can't have the discussion and that their opinion really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I concur with that. And I don't like this sentence here that says that the person who files the complaint is responsible for spending taxpayers' money. I really feel that anyone who goes so far to even be questioned as breaking an open meeting law is the person who is wasting the taxpayers' money. We need to always make sure that we are open and honest and do everything as a group and work together and value each other. There are times when Carl's expertise is awesome, but there are times when the rest of us offer perspectives that he may not see because guess what? No one's perfect and we all have something to offer.
In addition, I would say that I will not be withdrawing my request to the AG's office for further review. I believe that there is something to review there. While Carl has asked many times Attorney Costa whether or not two people can meet and whether that's a violation, no, it's not a violation, but moving all the way to the point of doing business or making decisions on behalf of the commission is a violation in my opinion.
John?
I guess two things. One, it was good to hear that at some point it becomes intentional and not ignorant. Which is why I asked you the other question. As far as the current open meeting complaint, if you don't want to withdraw, that's fine. It's absolutely fine. I'm just not sure where or how you're coming to the conclusion that money was approved in a communication between Joe and Carl, that's all. I'm not sure I understand that.
I'm not going to discuss open meeting law complaint with you now.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we skipped over some, Jack, do you have anything else to add?
I don't.
Okay, well, thank you so much for spending your evening away from your family. I appreciate
I'd say
your
it's always a
time.
pleasure, but
I appreciate your time with us,
Yeah,
but
thank
I
you,
know
John.
that they want to see you.
you're doing
at
a great
home.
job as interim chairperson as
Oh,
well. So
thank
thank
you.
you all. Thank you all, and thank you for your help, Joe, along the way.
Yes, thank you,
Appreciate it.
George.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
now we're on to policy changes for May, June public hearing. And policy changes, yes, let's see. Carl says irrigation, please share ideas we have discussed. And I assume the we means Barbara and Carl have been discussing this?
Yes, I have another, oops, did I already hand it out? I already handed it out, I believe. It had irrigation policy.
I'm not sure I printed it out.
No, but I handed it out tonight.
Oh, you did?
Should have. I don't have
Oh.
any more. It just handout
Did it look
before
Hand out before,
and
yeah.
then irrigation. Don't have the yellow, the orange.
Irrigation meter policy, it's on the
There you go.
back. You have to flip something over. Barb handed it, look on the back.
It looks like that on the front. Email.
Yes, there it is, you got
Have
it.
it, have it.
Okay, Barb, would you like to take this away?
Sure, it was a conversation, actually, I had sent one to everyone just on, when I had come to the realization that we talked about a change to the irrigation meter policy, and it didn't actually take into account manual meters. So I was sending it, Carl had been tasked with coming up with a draft policy, but in the interest of the full commission, I was requesting that we also take into account the manual meter portion, so that's why I did send it to everybody. So that was the start of that email. And then Carl and I just went back and forth about the policy on manual.
Barbara, I mean, I know what you mean by manual, but
I know what she
Okay.
means, yeah, I got
Okay.
it. They have to get out of the truck and walk up to the house
Right.
and read it.
Right, correct.
well, they have to do that with all the irrigation meters.
Yes, and
Yes,
this one
but
is
this
just
is-
not an irrigation
But
meter.
this is
it
not an irrigation, these
Right.
are beyond irrigation.
Right. This is.
These are water meters, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I just wanted to share what the conversation had been, and then on, today he had just, oh, no, I'm sorry, last week, he did send it, and there, yeah, anyway. At the bottom of it, there's little dots when he was talking about issues that didn't relate to the irrigation meter. And just said on timing public hearings, given our idea about billing fee timing, I think we should target getting this resolved about a month or two before the fall billing. So I am not working on it until after we meet to discuss the end of the month. The intent, I thought, for it to be on the agenda of this meeting was that we were gonna have a draft policy
I did
review.
too.
So
I did too.
that's why I wanted to share why there isn't a draft policy.
So we have a couple of options here. Since the draft policy was supposed to be ready for tonight, the three of us can come up with a draft policy. Or we can vote to table it since tonight was the night we were supposed to have it.
I would support tabling it rather than hashing out a policy.
Troy?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think we can do a policy on the fly, but
Okay, then can we add this to the future agenda? We should put it in next meeting, so we get a plan and we get a time frame.
Well,
Well,
did Carl offer any comments on irrigation meters?
Yeah, I think I just read it, didn't I? No? He
I think he
said,
wants to discuss it.
please share ideas we have discussed, and he means
Okay.
the we is Barb and he.
Yes.
And that's what I just did. But he does not plan on working until after we meet to discuss at the end of the month. At the end of the month, we had discussed having the irrigation reps come in and talk about the
Yes,
two
the different,
technologies, the two different meters. So I think he's asking to listen to them and not work on anything to do with the irrigation meter policy until after that. They're unrelated, but if we can change policy once, it's better than changing it twice.
I'm okay with that. And the next thing on the agenda here, grease trap regulation, I called Joe and I called Barb about to put on the agenda. I don't know if you remember, but about a year ago, we were working on redoing the grease trap policies. And I had gone through the big book and found that it said Barb was sending out notification every 2 weeks. When that is not the case, she is sending out notification once a month. And we had talked about changing the regulation to match the practice. Do you recall that? So I'm saying, as long as we're gonna have public hearings, whenever they may be, for the irrigation manual meters, let's also change that one sentence in the grease trap regulation in the appendix saying that Barb will send out warnings once a month, and then the practice will match the regulation.
I would agree with that. I don't think we need a motion for that.
No, that's just putting it on, so,
Yeah.
so put both of those on the further agenda, future agenda,
Right.
okay? All right,
But I won't put it on for the 29th, because we're gonna meet with the reps first. and
Okay.
discuss.
sounds fine. Fine with me, is it fine with everybody else? All right, excellent. So now we're down to grease trap compliance, Hilltop Farm, request waiver for grease trap regulation, all in the kitchen. Barb, take it
Yeah,
away.
Hilltop is now, it used to be, I forget what it started off as, Hadwin. Well, no, even before then. But anyway, Hadwin was doing
That's still the
Butchery.
market in the center of town.
yes, right in Main, one
The new
Main
liquor
Street.
store.
And so he did respond, and I did send that letter, correct?
Yes, he did.
So you got what his response was about us trying to enforce the grease trap regs. I also just got a thing from the Board of Health today. Andrea had spoken with George Emond, and inasmuch as they no longer sell anything that requires a grease trap, one would not be required from our board. Because when I read through what constitutes a food service establishment per our own regs, any establishment issued a permit to operate a food establishment by the Lunenburg Board of Health or any other non-residential establishment that creates grease as a byproduct. So I wanted to ensure that since they're the ones that define who needs a permit to operate, they did not see it. And I can help them.
So that was the Board of Health that had a conversation over the phone with the business manager?
Andrea talked with George.
Do you have another one?
Yep.
For John?
I'll
Or
keep
Troy?
going.
Okay, thank you.
But it's not been decided by their board?
No, but she referenced he's a convenience store. They're going by what their precedent is and that they don't require any other convenience stores in town.
I'm questioning procedure.
I know.
In our regs too, it states establishments which do not, this is under exemptions, section H. Establishments which do not prepare food, do not use fats, oils, grease, and which do not provide seating or other facilities for consumption of foods on the premises. So that would be an exemption.
Yeah, right. I agree.
Yeah, they don't have any.
So do we need to do something here, or
So
should we
I
just
don't.
take a vote, or what would you
Yeah, I
like?
think a vote would be appropriate, that I can advise Mr. Patel that, that
There was a fine.
Barb, is there a policy at any
he
point?
paid the fine. He did pay.
did,
He
okay.
paid the 50 that we had.
I should probably read Carl's comment. Hilltop should be straightforward as in past. If they provide plumbing inspector sign-off that the trap has been removed, along with the change in usage, no longer food service, this should be okay. So Carl is recommending that we get a plumber's sign off that the trap has been removed.
It hasn't been removed.
It hasn't been.
We don't need to remove it, do we?
Well,
Well, that was where my question was going with, do we have a policy about if at any point in time someone were to go in and inspect and there was evidence of it being used, would there be any charges or anything back to the date?
because it just goes back to Twin City Baptist. I believe you're required, they remove their 3-bay sink. So I think that's what Carl is thinking about.
How do you feel about that? Do you feel they need to remove it, or do you think it's fine if they just not use it?
Well, it gets to consistency.
Well, we gave,
What's the
we
policy?
gave
But,
Crossroads.
but here, even within our own regs, unless I'm missing something within the context, is that I didn't reread the entire Appendix C, but under exemptions, it's the one I read. And so,
Yeah. If it's exempt, it's exempt. It doesn't say they have to disconnect it.
Right. I think at the other end of it, we have to consider what it's like to do business in Lunenburg.
correct.
And, to remove this is not going to be a small expense. It wouldn't be a small expense. Not saying that that's what we should base our decision on, but I think when we are absent of a policy and you're leaving it up to the commission that's present, then it would behoove you to develop a policy, I think, if you wish to direct future commission. I, for one, would say at this point in time, they've met the standard by which they do not have, they could be exempt.
I agree with that, and I think going back to the Twin City Baptist example, I think there was some confusion about what the plumbing code required, and I don't really want to rehash that whole thing, but I'm comfortable with going with our own regulation here.
I'm comfortable going with the regulation as you pointed it out, John. I don't think they need to disconnect the grease trap thing. As long as they're not preparing food, I don't see the problem.
One other comment, and this was made at the town meeting by Mr. Luck, is that the statement was made that the sewer commission is not a precedent-setting commission or board.
Perfect, I remember that as he was speaking for Tilton Ave. Correct, because we didn't require them to show need.
It has said that
Correct.
to us more than once.
Yes,
I also, there was a footnote, just be careful.
yeah, but we are not a precedent-setting board, so we don't have to do that. So should we have a vote on this, Barb?
Yes, and can I ask the section that you're referencing? So I can put it in the minutes.
It's H under,
Section H of the grease trap.
Grease trap appendix, is that what it
yeah,
is?
it's Appendix C. Let's see, we got definitions, general provisions,
I think it's just Section H.
Section H under general provisions.
The grease trap appendix.
Okay.
Appendix C, Joan.
Okay, now we'll move to ugly omelet.
Oh,
Oh, no,
no.
I'm sorry, we gotta do the vote. Thank you very much. So can I take a motion then that we do not need to remove the grease trap here? That they're gonna go with the exception as written in the
I'll make-
regulations?
I'll make a motion that the Hilltop Farm operating as they are, not, the request for waiver from a grease trap regulations be granted. What was the other part?
And they not have to remove the...
And it's not necessary to remove the grease trap.
I would second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You all set now?
Okay.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, sorry, forgot that. The next one is a Whalum, the ugly omelet.
Yes, which is now Whalum Kitchen
Whalum
by
Kitchen.
Kim Chen. You received Rich's email to me that Kim is really responsible as the holder of the lease.
Yes, indeed.
She did submit a letter
Need
this
one more?
week. Yeah, I'll go. She did submit it, and you can read for yourself, but basically saying that she doesn't think she should pay it because it wasn't her non-compliance.
Do you want my comment, or?
I do want your comment.
So, my feeling is that they should meet with the same process, and that they should appear before us, or appear before the sewer commission. And this is something that I brought up really early on, in that it's problematic whenever you can legally change names, and you can change names with different owners, and/or owners can be subsidized, and/or like a straw buyer and things like that. So I think it would be very difficult to say that you're no longer responsible entirely, in its entirety, because we did the same process with them as we did with others, where we notify them, and we also notify the landowners, or the building owner.
Right.
Well,
So the building owner was aware of
the
it.
important part is that the letter and the non-compliance, the request for payment is sent to the owner of the property.
Right.
Because he is the one constant.
So he
And
was
she
made aware.
CC'd. Yeah.
Right, but he
He is aware, he was definitely made aware and thinks that Kim should take care of it, but Kim is now saying, not
Okay,
mine.
Are you, wait a minute, are you done, Troy?
Yeah.
John?
This first came up a couple meetings ago, and you brought the point up, this particular issue that you bring up again tonight. Did we ever address that with council? I mean, I don't remember.
Yes, I did.
Do you recall?
I thought
He wanted us to go to the owner.
I
Well, that's what I
remember, my memory is that he
Right.
said the fine went with the property.
Correct.
Not with whoever is managing
Right,
it at the
because you
time,
can
or renting
change
the space,
name.
or whatever.
Right.
It's kind of like, you know, when you buy a house, you have to have a lawyer look at all the liens and everything else on the house. My feeling is that this fine goes with the building, and whoever takes ownership, management, or whatever of the building owns the fine. And I would propose that we send a letter to this person back,
Kim or Richard?
both,
Okay.
certified, let's make it certified, saying, but we have to vote on this yet, this is just my suggestion, saying that we think the fine goes with the property, and that they need to come before us if they wish to discuss this, just like we had tonight, Crossroads before us.
I have one request in
Yes.
that I did talk to council. The one thing I do remember is if I got any pushback. Originally, Richard thought, no problem, Kim will take care of it. So I let council know that, and his response was, if it comes any more, then let me know, please involve me. So I
Yes.
would just like your permission to go back
Yes.
to council and get his
That's fine.
input.
It's got mine, everybody's, yep, all three of us.
All right, so I will do that, and he'll
Do
hopefully.
you want a motion, or?
Well, she doesn't need a motion.
No.
Not to
But
pass
the
it on.
motion.
But the motion would be for writing a letter to copy both the owner and the president.
Well, why, you want to wait until after you hear from council, right?
No, because they have to come and discuss it with us, no
Oh,
matter what
okay.
council
I
says.
think they can.
But I would like council's help with the letter. I think
Okay.
that's what council is
So
trying to say,
you
that,
want us to wait then?
Probably withdraw the motion.
Okay.
and then, yeah. and
Can you
with
put this on
council's
the
approval,
agenda
I
for
could-
the next meeting in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Because
But
I
I
don't
can
want it
also
to
just say
fall through
send-
the, whenever the
Right,
next
right, right.
meeting
A
is.
motion wasn't actually made, so one doesn't need to
No.
withdraw.
Right.
No, we were just discussing.
And the motion could be that after Barb talks with council, that a certified letter is sent based on council's recommendation.
I think the
And
commission
that
should
should-
talk about it first, don't you?
Okay.
It's only, the
I
next
would rather-
meeting is how
Okay.
far away?
The 29th, so it's 3 weeks.
Well, I don't know. What do you think, John?
And it gets closer to the annual permit. The annual permit has to go
That's a
out,
good
so they would be
point.
That's a good
non-compliant.
point. That's a good
at this
point.
point.
But also, there aren't any additional fines accumulating right now.
No.
Okay. Then I
trust council.
Okay,
yeah,
all right, fine.
so we have a motion for Barbara to, after speaking with council, to send a letter to
Owner and
owner and
manager.
manager,
Okay. With council's recommendation.
Yes.
council's recommendation.
Yeah.
That's a motion.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you.
Did we, oh, yeah, we read the comment.
We didn't read
Well, Carl
correspondence.
said, ugly on it, we should not get sucked in between owner and renter. If the business wants a permit for next year, this overdue fee needs to be paid. End of story.
Okay.
Okay. Billing. Is billing next? Yes, it is. Business manager report.
Oh, and just one more, first Tuesday report under that
Oh, yes.
compliance is that everybody kept their things in.
Thank you.
Okay. Invoices, I just have, I have a couple, I have the normal monthly Fitchburg invoice. Matches what we provide as far as the flow meters, 17,791.31.
Do we have to sign this or anything?
You have to initial, or just that you've reviewed it.
Just you, I think.
Yeah.
Just fine.
Right. And then Copeland and Page provided an invoice for the work on the Highfield, getting the draft out and back, $442. And moving on, Fitchburg rate increase did get approved for the 8%, going into effect June 1st, which we will see July 1st, so it'll be effective with the new fiscal year. And we did budget for that increase. But it went through a 3-prong process and finally went through the last one. Okay?
Okay.
Grease trap, the renewals, just on there to let you know, I'm still whacking away at bills, and I need to get those out, and then the next thing will be to send out these annual permit renewal letters.
Okay.
I'll throw it out there if anybody wants to come in and look through, or actually the Google Drive has our, the compliances and all the stuff, if anybody wants to take a look.
This is for the annual permitting.
Yes, to determine compliant, non-compliant.
Okay, but now are we gonna get at a meeting a list of people who are not compliant
I
this year?
figure I'll put it on the agenda for reviewing at the 29th, I'm hoping.
Yes, because we need to
Before it
look
goes
at
out.
that, because the regulation says that if at any time during the year they were not compliant,
Right.
they pay a higher fee when they go to
Correct.
reapply, and I wanna make sure we get that list of everyone who is late.
Okay, before the letters are sent.
Absolutely.
Okay, I will put it as an agenda item.
Okay, Carl said, did you talk about billing outsourcing yet?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Review a list of, anyway, but whoever would like, if anybody would like to look through or come in and look through the files, I've got,
Can we can access it from home too?
yeah, the Google Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you need to look at the files,
Oh.
they're all in here.
But you're gonna just provide us with a summary.
Yes,
Thank
I'm
you.
just asking for help if anybody wants to provide it. And helping me compile that list or summary. The
I know what
summary's
you-
lovely.
I know what you
Somebody
meant.
has to get there. Okay, because I just need to get my bills out. Billing outsource update, I probably should not have had it on the agenda because I believe at the last meeting it was agreed that we were going to wait until it was not my crazy busy time, like mid-August. Am I incorrect?
We did.
Because
Yes,
Carl-
because you needed to.
I need to go to
spend some time.
Munis and get
Right.
a quote, but I need to get through
You
this
need-
craziness.
Right.
Right.
And you need to figure out exactly what it is you want to
Right.
get from them and what to talk to them about. So-
Correct. So I just want to, because Carl did submit
I will
that he
read
thought he
his.
wanted information, and I'm like, I believe,
It says, as it is not in the package, I suspect we do not have the Munis quote to provide the data format for electronically getting bills data into Munis. Please try to get this before the next meeting so we can move forward. If you do have it, forward me a copy. But my memory is the same as John's, where we said we were gonna wait on that. So I agree with
And that
John.
was at the last meeting?
I believe it was.
that's what I thought, and I'm just trying to confirm that with you guys, that's what I was going with. I was not planning to pursue that right now.
Okay, are we all set now with business manager report? Yes?
Yes, I think so.
Members' agenda items for future meetings. I think we've already said a few today. Barbara's going to put the schools on for July. They'll be contacting you. And want to review for us the other ones you said you were going to put on today?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yep, and there's the agenda in July.
Irrigation meters was,
Pat, let me just pull it up. Yes, Pat, to have the Weston Sampson DEP response, or at least Pat's input,
whoa,
to prioritize dates.
to prioritize dates, but that doesn't involve Pat.
No,
We've already
I'm
told
just
him
looking
his
at it.
budget, and we've already worked that out. He's got some tasks he's going to do.
Right, it would
We
be
were-
nice to have an update from, just an update
Yes, an
from
update.
Pat at that point in time.
That would be great.
Okay,
And then we are going to talk about prioritizing the tasks,
Right.
okay?
yep.
Irrigation meters was going on 2 meetings from now, if I was correct. Next meeting is going to be the show and tell with the vendors.
Yes.
And then,
And then the following one, so that it would be the first one in June.
okay?
I would assume would have the 2 policy changes
And,
discussion.
yeah, the grease trap as well as the,
Right.
the other one, okay, great.
And then the Whalen Kitchen is what I have so far, and then 529 meeting. To review the list of non-compliance.
Yes. Anything else? I can read Carl's list.
Yeah, read Carl's list.
I&I request for quotes, pump station flow analysis, Elizabeth Ann unknown I&I source determination, bottoms-up third-party review of inflow-outflow data in conjunction with prior studies and remediation. I thought today we kind of talked about how we're going to have the engineers be doing the data. These are not all approved for the next meeting, so they're just
Right, this
suggestions.
is input, right.
Request for quote on a maintenance plan, billing outsourcing, irrigation meters, identification of MH frame, manhole frame grates. Oh yes, and when they were replaced, and formal request to town manager if needed. We haven't voted as a group to request that, I believe. That's just Carl running that. A task 1 contract.
That's also Carl.
So I don't know, I mean, Joe will be
Yeah, Joe will have
probably
to make-
make a decision on that, but I don't think a lot of these things have been voted on by the commission. I think they're simply things that Carl wants. But tonight, we did vote on several things that we said would be passed on. We picked a date for the irrigation meter policy discussion, and we have the grease trap attached to that. We have the schools in July. We have the Whalen Kitchen in the next meeting, correct? So we have some things that we have put on there. Are there any other inputs for the agenda? Are there any
Just thanks to,
public comment?
all right, just making sure. I don't want you to-
I know, public comment. I'm going to miss Troy
Thank you.
very much. I think he offered a unique perspective. I think that all of us offer something, and I appreciated your perspective. Carl did send something about that, I believe, although it's not in this one. Is it in the other one, Barb? I know that he said he wanted to thank you for all your work. Oh, it's in the one where he asked for it to be, it's in this one. There was another email from Carl. It's in this one, and it says, it is also Troy Daniels' last meeting as a commissioner, and I'm sure he will be thanked for his contributions and may want to share a few words with the community. He already
We just want to
has.
thank you for your contributions mostly, and your intelligence and knowledge.
Thank
Brought
you.
great
I would second
benefits to
that.
this committee.
I would triple that.
There you go.
You will be missed, very much.
Definitely.
So, good luck,
Thank you.
and I'm sure we'll see you again in public service down the road.
We do.
Yeah. And I just want to make one public comment myself. When I raised my concerns to Barb today about possible open meeting law violations and she being used as a conduit for information, I want you to know that I appreciate everything you do, and that I know you're in a very difficult position sometimes. But I don't think you have to put things in sealed envelopes. I don't think any theatrics are necessary, because Barb didn't you suggest you
I
put
did,
everything?
just because I get,
But you know what, we don't need theatrics, and that's
No.
not necessary. The only thing that has to happen is that you can't be a conduit for information. So
So-
the word no has to happen,
Right.
and you will have my backing if you say no. John?
Absolutely.
You know, you will have our backing if you say no.
Yep.
That is a
I mean, we all know
difficult,
emails can get convoluted,
yes,
let alone an open meeting violation.
Right.
Just-
right. And so, you know, I don't feel an additional open meeting law violation needs to be filed, but I do feel that you need to say no. And if it's a little bit more cumbersome, as Adam Costa said, that's the law.
Yeah.
It's meant to be more cumbersome to ensure every commissioner has a role that's equal, and also to ensure that the public has a right to hear all the discussion.
Right.
And emailing people with stuff means that some of the discussion is happening back room. And that's what open meeting law doesn't want to happen anymore.
Right, and all I was really trying to say is that my request is that commissioners, if they have input, bring it to the meeting.
Yes.
Or give it to me in some, just so I can say, here is
Well,
input
no,
for
we
the
don't need to
meeting.
do that. You
No,
can
I
just
know,
have an email.
but
You
that's
just
what my
don't
point
send
was,
it. You
was
just, you can't send it, even
Right,
as
it doesn't
it's
have to come through me.
well-intentioned.
That's what I'm saying, it doesn't have to. If
Well,
it's going to be
actually,
brought
no,
up.
actually, and I do have a previous email earlier this year from Adam, that when a commissioner has a question, they shouldn't be going to Jack, they should be going to you.
Oh, yeah, no, that's,
So you told me Carl was going to be going directly to Jack. That shouldn't be happening. That should not be happening. That should be,
well, he said that.
but that should not be happening.
If I have any issues with Jack, I will speak to him directly.
No, that should not be
That's what he said.
happening.
Yeah,
That, because I went to Adam earlier, I don't know if you remember, and got a ruling, and he said we should be going to Barb. But it means that you do have a responsibility to keep it with you until the meeting. And you do, we'll have your backs on that. John, any input
Yeah.
on that?
I think you said it.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Public comment.
I did that, okay, go ahead.
So as a sewer user and as a commission member, I would say there have been a couple of things that have concerned me the most, and that is the lack of policy in a lot of areas. I had the opportunity to serve on the sewer commission years earlier and then leave and come back. And I have to admit that I was pretty astonished at the little progress that had been made on many issues, and that we were still talking about grease trap policy, and we were talking about different policies. And that's a concern for me. And whenever we have a tendency to get involved into day-to-day business and overlook the policy, I think it also leaves future sewer commissioners sort of in the dark. I also am concerned that we've been keeping the rates artificially low at the cost of a capital plan. And I would encourage the sewer commission as much as possible to stay focused on a capital plan. And I hope for the rate users, I hope they understand that even if there's a small increase and that money's going towards savings or is going towards the items that we bought or that we talked about buying tonight, that that's going to keep the rates lower than a huge increase all at once if we have some catastrophic event. I am also concerned as a citizen and a user of the sewer that the person that was nominated at the town caucus has not attended a sewer commission meeting. And I would hope that that person does everything they can to avail themselves and to learn and inform themselves and realize the impact of their decisions and realize the impact of what the work that's done here. And I would also say that I've agreed working with all of you, and that I will close with.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I mean, Troy brought up 2 points, if it's not too late to do this. We do need to have on the agenda pretty soon, talking about a capital plan.
I would like that.
So, whether it's, we just need to keep that visible.
So maybe
And also
add it to the agenda
policy review.
in policy, yeah. I would like to see us also focus on policy and not data analysis. Data analysis belongs in the hands of the engineers that we pay, and we should be a policy board.
policy, I know financial policy has been one, are you? just general
Well, I-
policy
in-
discussion?
In general.
Capital policy,
Okay.
capital planning.
Okay, thank you.
The screw is almost out on this leg.
Anybody else? Anybody else have something to add? Barb?
I've said enough.
Okay. Then I will take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.